So, guys, thanks for having me today. And what I want to explore with you is the forward edge and the undertow. And this is my forward edge. This is something I'm very interested and excited in describing and knowing more about. And I'm feeling my forward edge and undertow this morning because I've been scrambling to get it all ready. So I'm like, ooh, and I'm excited to teach you, but I'm a little nervous too. So I have my own excited edge and undertow here. Please bear with me, guys. I'm just going to touch on a couple of concepts, which I know many of you know well already. But if you just bear with me, I think it's helpful just to gently touch on them as we go, because it kind of it helps set the scene a little more for the forward edge and undertow. I want to just touch on a couple of Jean's concepts, central concepts first. The first one being the concept of process, and that Jean's philosophy is called a process model, because in his model, life is a human living that's not held in as discrete entities, but as a process. And it might sound simple, but it's almost impossible for us to get our heads really around what it is to be a living process, a very unique, always moving, always engaged process. The second concept is carrying forward. Jean said that every experience, no matter how dysfunctional it seems, has a life forward movement within it, inherent within it, that's trying to happen. And we are a living process that has this life forward movement. And that's always implying, always trying to carry forward. And the neat thing is, in focusing, we get to consciously participate in this forward movement, right? By going to the edge of thinking and our known concepts about life. And there we begin to touch into our unconscious, into the more, or as Jean called it, the implicit. So Jean called this edge the horizon line of experience. And we know when we get there, because we don't know it through thinking or through our regular emotions that we're so used to, happy, sad, mad, but instead we experience the feeling sense of something there. It's at this horizon line where we touch into this feeling sense where change happens in therapy and coaching, where creative thinking happens. So Jean also said that in this idea of concept of process, that things in our psyche are not either known or unknown. In fact, there are no things. That he felt that the implicit was, he conceptualized it as this vast, fluid, interconnected, ever-changing web of meaning. So this is very kind of important in the way that we experience our forward movement and our forward edge. So when we bring an issue to this edge of thinking with an open curiosity and sense into this feeling sense at the horizon line, it communicates to us in the language of kind of poetic, unusual words, images, metaphors, gestures, movements, right, that we know so well. It comes with tears, laughter, sighs, an aliveness and an animation that lights somebody up, gestures, flushing, tone of voice. There are so many ways that it comes in us, right? And so we give those comings a voice. And when we give those comings what's emerging a voice, it emerges from the underneath, the whole package, from this fluid, interconnected, implicit, and that moves us forward. So I just want to share very quickly something with you that I know you're familiar with, but let's just have a little reminder, right? of the zigzag, right? We have the explicit and the implicit, the conscious and what some call unconscious. And then we have this horizon line. So growth happens with each one of these forward movements. Each one, as we dip to the felt sense, feel in, symbolize it. A package comes from underneath, from this fast fluid, and it comes up into our conscious. And understandings, a shift happens, and realizations come there with each of these little shifts, right? And we do everything we can to participate in this forward movement as we reflect, we invite, we evoke, we court what's emerging underneath. And so I just wanted to show you a little clip of something I put together. It's just a minute that really gave me an evocative sense of this organic emerging that happens when we focus. And so, like, notice how those organic movements, right, they're very fluid and unidirectional. It's not linear all in a row, but there is a forward movement that happens there. And so when our felt sense emerges, it can be a little bit like this forward movement, and like we're riding, we're surfing a wave together, right? We're both, as we symbolize and as we keep that company, as we watch and feel for it and invite it, we're surfing this wave together. But just like fluid dynamics, right? It has more of the qualities of fluid dynamics. It's not just linear. It's, you know, when people say 2 steps forward, 1 step back, that's the kind of growth and movement that they're pointing to. But even fluid dynamics are a bit of a limited analogy, because even fluid dynamics are a bit flat, right? Because as you have this emergence, as you have this forward movement, that forward edge transforms. It changes, right? It transforms, it evolves. It's always a becoming. And that new becoming then changes, it interacts with everything around it, and it changes everything. So it's this wonderful multi-dimensional shift and change. So I want to say something about that forward movement, because with that forward movement, inevitably, there often is an undertow, right? As you move forward, at the bottom of the wave, there is this undertow. And it's something that I've noticed in myself and with some of the people I work with. And that's what I wanted to share with you. And I have some... I've put together just a list of the characteristics I've noticed, and maybe you guys can come up with more. Let me just quickly share this list with you. So these are some of the things I've noticed. As this newness comes, there's a vulnerability, right? There's a vulnerability at being in these uncharted, unfamiliar waters. Like the old familiar ways you've identified with yourself as are shifting, and there can be this unsteadiness, right? An unsteadiness, and even fear about being your new, freer self. Those kind of tender shoots of vulnerable. Old ways of being are so well worn that they have their own gravitational pull, like an identity, right? One client I worked with said it can be so painful, but at the same time, her old way of being feels so familiar that it's almost like a comfort blanket for her. It's this place she knows so well. So it's like the experiments with fish, fish who are put in the ocean, but in a tank with glass walls, and then those walls are taken away, but the fish still keep swimming as if they're still imprisoned. Another thing I've noticed is that there can be a sense of betrayal of your younger self. It's like if you move on, you're leaving behind that little one. I'm working with somebody who would wait outside her mother's door when she was very little, because her mother fell into deep depressions and wouldn't come out for a few days. And so my client was waiting, hoping her mum would come and finally, love her and scoop her up. But she's been waiting at that door in the same protest for what she hasn't gotten for many years, for her life, actually, holding out for what she needed and for not getting it in the way she needed it then. So it's giving up the curative fantasy is part of this, of getting the love of the unavailable father, being the chosen special one, or being the greatest that gets all the love and the attention. I've also noticed a fear of being alone. I've noticed this in myself too, that your new way of being is threatening those primal bonds that you have inside your original caregivers, and both alive and dead. So it's like you need to disrupt those bonds inside to move away and to differentiate more of who you really are. But there can be that immediate fear of losing that connection. I've also noticed regrets and grief and sometimes anger as this new way comes into being. It really throws a light on all the ways life has not been lived in that old way of being, all the opportunities lost, that becomes clear in this light of this newness. And lastly, the critic. The critic often comes in and may berate you and say you're a loser, look at what you've done to your life, it's too late to change. Or it might say you're getting too big for your britches, who do you think you are? So these are things that I've kind of noticed in myself and in my practice. And I'd love to hear, actually, if you have any others you can think of. I'd really, or maybe we'll have a chance to dialogue as well. So I'd really love to hear that. And just before I finish, I want to show you a clip of a video I put together. I teach focusing and I teach a 2-year certification. And as part of that, I do individual sessions with each student and I record them. And then we share them in a library. One of those students is called Thea, and she very generously allowed me to use some of her session. I've taken out just a few clips to share with you. So just to have the sense that this is a 45-minute session, and these clips are only 5 minutes that I've put together, and they're of the last like 25, 30 minutes. So they're all squeezed in so I could get to show you the process. So you don't really get quite a sense of the rhythm of it, but you get a sense of some of the things that I listed. So hopefully you'll get a sense of that. So let me just...
Before you show it to us, maybe you could say a word about how knowing about it helps and how we work with it, what we should look for that you're doing. with this client to help her.
Ah.
So,
Well, maybe we could, because you don't see much of what I'm doing in this clip.
so that would be for a further discussion.
That would be further discussion. What I want to show you is mainly fear. And what you're seeing is a few phases. You're seeing the newness come, and then you're seeing the backlash. And then you're seeing it all settle and reconstitute. And you're seeing it all in 5 minutes. So it's pretty, like, hold on to your seats. It's a quick one.
It feels like it's swirling around the heart.
Yeah.
It feels cleansing in a way. It feels, the big thing is it feels more spacious and less fragile.
Yeah, right. More. I just want to make a note here that what Thea was working on is a difficult relationship in her life. And what's coming is a way she doesn't want to be in that relationship. So there's a new way coming for her in her heart, a new spaciousness and a new, more of her coming. Right. So that's where the point we're coming in, just as this newness of her real self coming through more. She doesn't want to box herself in to be small again. Small. She's lived in quite a small way and within people's judgments for a long time. So I'll just start that bit again.
It's like it's swirling around the heart.
Yeah.
It feels cleansing in a way. It feels, the big thing is it feels more spacious and less fragile.
Yeah, right. More spacious, less fragile, and there's an activity in the heart. Something's happening in your heart. What sense do you get of what's happening in your heart, in this spaciousness?
It's almost like, I'm seeing an image of something you probably have never seen before, but there's like a spring in Florida that empties into a river, and I think it's the Santa Fe River, and the river has all of these tannins and it looks like tea. It's very dark, but I'm seeing all sorts of billowing and freshness coming in because it's like, the tannin water is kind of stagnant, and then the water that's coming in from the spring is very fresh and cold. Yeah. It brings newness, it brings freshness, it brings it's just, it's purity. It feels, because the stuff coming up is a total unknown. It's a little scary. Is it okay to make mistakes with people?
This new thing, that's just with the spaciousness and its life and its movement, right? Let's just check in with it. How's it doing at the moment? How's all of this doing?
Right. It's getting tight and protective and defensive, and it wants to take all that creativity and put it behind a wall and hide it. It feels really scary. It feels really too big, too much. There's too much energy there. It's too big, it's too expansive, there's too much energy. It's like it's too powerful. There's way too much power there. Well, there's anger though. There's anger from, also there's the anger that this has all been squashed down. There's a lot of anger.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of anger.
Yeah, let's give that anger some voice. We've got a lot to be angry about. Like, what's in the anger? What's feeling there?
It's actually, it's like a rage. It's like It's a rage of not being seen, not being validated, not being heard, not being allowed to blossom, to having to hide. It's just so much anger from having to hide. It feels like there's a whole bunch of pieces. It's like there's it's a whole bunch of pieces, and then it's like they haven't settled into a new configuration yet. So it's all like kind of fragmented, kind of like, oh, okay, there's all these components that haven't like settled into a new. Yeah, it's like, yeah, and that's not the end of the world, and you don't have to control it and you don't have to put it back together. Let it put itself back together.
Yes, so I'd love to just hear your reactions here. Is it something you recognize? What are your experiences there? Maybe something about the video.
That was just amazing, Charlotte.
Yeah, it's, I mean, the whole video, there's a lot more in the video, but that managed to just to get the little pieces there, and it's just so clear, right? It's very articulate about it.
Well, I can say something, Charlotte.
Oh yes, hi, Gray.
Hi. It's a very familiar. It's very familiar, that explosion, that sort of, when you start to work and you know there's something, right? There's an issue, whatever, and then you go down and it opens, but way beyond that initial opening, and what comes with that is like an explosion into life and changes on so intricate, wide, deep, new. It's really quite an adventure. So
yeah, it really is an amazing adventure, right? And I love that you mentioned the intricacy of it, because it is so intricate. Even though it's this big fluid thing, it has this incredible intricacy to it that it affects every kind of facet. Yeah.
Charlotte? Hi. I'm noticing like a response to, for the, maybe the undertow in me kind of feels like putting on the brakes, you know, there's this part that feels big and open and spacious and excited, and then another part that goes yeah, but not just yet, you know. let's wait right here.
Yeah, putting on the brakes as well. That's a nice description of it. How the putting on the brakes, could you say a little bit more about what's in that? Because that can have a few different aspects.
Well, my first reaction is like to be judgmental about putting on the brakes, like you know, critical. And then with focusing in on that place, it's more like, oh no, this is my job to keep us going so fast to I guess that's as far as I've gotten, but it feels like there's a way of not traveling out so far that I don't recognize myself anymore.
So it's like a tempering, right?
Yeah, titrating, yeah. Yeah.
Right, so that feels like quite a good relationship there with your undertow. That it's more like a kind of a balancing, as you say, titrating, balancing thing. does that feel?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there's also that inner critic too that doesn't want me to slow down. That goes, yeah, big new. You know, that's American. New frontiers.
Oh, so that's interesting. Your inner critic goes the other way. Your inner critic says, yes, tally ho, let's go forward, right? And rather than it being an inner critic that's holding you back, it's more of what's holding you back is this, let's go steady, let's be reasonable, let's just be careful and cautious here, take time to integrate.
It's not actually that reasonable. It's more like I have this image of just like putting my heels in, and now I'm slowing me down, like you have to drag me forward into this new thing. The energy, I'm slowing down the energy because the energy is somehow overwhelming to this part. Yeah.
Right. So you've got the energy that feels overwhelming. You've got the critic then coming in and saying, you need to go with that. So you've got two things there. And then another part that's digging its heels in saying, it's all going too fast.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Trevor, I think I can't see you, Trevor, but you raised your hand. Trevor?
You're muted, Trevor.
I'm here now.
Okay, Trevor, did you have a question?
Yes, I like the. I like, not I like. I'm amazed by your notion of the ocean and the overthrow, because the power of it is really tremendous. And the characteristics are very, the fact that you've brought it down to such minute portions is a real insight for me anyway. And your visuals are tremendous. All that having been said, let me get to the point. I think that I've never, of the 7 years that I've been with focusing, I've never really assessed it in the same way that you're bringing up, which is tremendous, because that's really where I feel I'm at. But the edge gets very dulled by the interaction with other people, with other focusing folks, to use the familiar term, because they don't really feel like folks. They feel like people who are drifting rather than being pushed into the newer aspect of understanding what we are in the 21st century. There is an underthrow of going back to the 1960s, 70s, without really acknowledging that somebody as ruthless as Putin can actually disrupt the whole, well, I'm thinking of a German term, but I'm not, my background, I'm hesitating only because of where I've been rather than where I want to go.
Right. And Trevor, one thing I love that you've brought the ocean with you in your backdrop. Very evocative, can smell that sea air. So it's interesting, right? That what you're noticing something at that forward edge, or you're noticing something about that edge. And world events, in fact, anything will come differently for each person at their forward edge because it's so unique, right? And when we have a forward edge, it has so many strands that come from the implicit. So many strands, it can be sometimes hard to even be able to know, even number how many strands. But there will be everything. When Jean talks about that we are interaction, that what we are made of is interaction, in our moving forward, we're in interaction with all these strands, our genetic makeup, our education, our culture, the solar system at the moment, and political circumstances. Everything is part of that implying. And so as that moves forward, that will have different meanings for different people, and it will be wonderfully unique for each person and will mean something different for each person.
I get what you're saying, but there is a need for resistance to Putin, and as the consensus seems to be emerging, there's still destruction that's going on in the same time, and somehow the mass of people, seems to want to go back to sleep and allow Trumpism and Johnsonism and Merkelism to overcome and really not see what's really happening. And out of that is a need for some collective action,
Right.
which, I mean, I can feel like the undertow is worldwide, and the edge is very murky.
Thank you, Trevor. Very murky.
I just wanted to come in here, if it's okay, Charlotte, and just mark what you're saying, Trevor. And maybe as a whole group, we'll come back to that, because we are thinking about having another session about windows to the world, about the world. But what I get of what you're saying is really interesting, that the forward movement and then the undertow is individual. But I think Trevor is also saying that that Jean would agree, and we know this in some way, that the evolution in the world is like that. The world forward, and then there's this undertow and this edge where we don't know where the direction is. But I'd like to leave that for now, because we will come back to that at another time as a community. And
Nick, I just wanted to give Amarin a quick chance. She's had her hand up. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not cutting off the discussion. I wanted to mark what Trevor was saying as something we'd come back to.
Great. Yes. Thank you. Amarin.
So nice to see you, Charlotte.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, I love this process. I thought it was very beautiful, and I really get where you're going with it. I've experienced some exactly what you're saying, like you're betraying, is it some small part, some younger part? I have felt that, like I have gone and felt a space where I've visited many times, and I'm like, okay, so why don't you want to let go? What is it? And what came up was, if I let go, I will never experience, and I'll use your example of my mother walking out of the room and meeting me. I'll never get to do it. Yeah. So at that point, it's like it doesn't want to let go because it's still waiting for that love or that need to be met. And if it lets go, it's never going to get to experience it. So how do you convince that part that, yep, it's never going to get met the way it's still looking for? I mean, my mother's long gone, for one thing, and I'm much older now. convincing it to let go and move.
Mm-hmm. So that's a question of how do you do that? Yes, yes. Well, again, for each person, it's different, but it takes a lot of time and tender, loving attention.
And you
Right.
think it ultimately will give it up. It's like it's still holding on. It will give it up and be able to move forward.
In my experience, yes, because it's by going back and really acknowledging her there over and over, the different aspects and ways. It's something like that takes a while. It's not a one-time thing. And Lynn and maybe other people can speak to this. It's going back and back because every life situation brings it differently, and another facet gets lifted out to be able to kind of take into your heart and to really be with her and be with her together, right? With the person you're focusing with, or with your therapist, or whoever your person is, just to really understand and acknowledge her. Each time a little step comes there, and slowly there begins to be a thaw and a growing, so that you both and that you can be the one there for her.
That makes total sense. What you're saying and I'm hearing is patience.
A lot of patience.
Yeah, something I've never been really good at, but that makes sense. And I'll be really quick, because the other point that you made makes total sense too, is like experiencing that movement, experiencing the complete sense of being different. And it's beautiful and it's sad, because it's like, it's been here all this time and I didn't know.
Yeah.
So very much of what you're saying, what you're talking about today really resonates with, my process.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that what I noticed was that in the video, Charlotte, you didn't try to convince that one that it was okay to move forward. You were really so with, all the different voices and saying, let's make room for the anger, right? So it being the validation of those aspects of ourselves that need to hold on seems like an important part of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, being with the all of it, inviting the all of it, right? There's this thing in focusing, is that we turn towards and invite everything. Everything becomes a something, and everything is to be kept company with and invited, and with a curiosity. So when the anger comes, that's to be invited. It's trusting, right? When the sadness and the grief comes, to be invited. This is very beautiful organic unfolding that's happening, that you're helping to be with, and be an interaction to help that to come. And so it's all welcome. And if any part is stopped or rejected, then there's it can't unfold in the way that it needs to, in that inherent forward movement. Lynn, I'm just noticing it's 9. I don't know if what you'd like to do here.
Well, it seems like that we had said that at 9 we would do an attunement and then have people talk in your small groups about this. But I have the feeling that there's 1 or 2 more people. I always get a felt sense of this. 1 or 2 more people who have something that they want to say, and maybe they could say it briefly for us before we have the attunement. Does that seem right to you, Charlotte?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it seems,
Mary.
yeah, I really related very much to your client there. But the learning for me is that there's probably a whole lot of anger, like that I haven't even been, I haven't even looked at. I have this sense because, as I was brought up, slamming a door was worth a spanking, so there was no allowing of anger to be shown. And I can see that that's a growing edge for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Liz.
Am I unmuted? Yes.
Yes.
For me, the image of the undertow is so rich because it's like you can't see. It's the dark. It's the potential. And there's that sense of a drag. The undertow, it drags you.
Mm.
So it's very symbolic to me about what might be holding you back, metaphorically. What?
Yeah, I love that, Liz. And it's speaking to Mary and your anger, right? I love that you're talking about the dark and the richness of the dark, because there's so much in that anger, right? There's so much energy and life force in that anger that's not been allowed. So in those undertows, there is so much more vitality.
Yeah.
And there's the gold is in the coal, or however that metaphor goes. The gold is in the dark, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
And you just naming it, it gives permission or space to be aware of that. Even if you can't honor it, it's just like, oh, it's like a breath. Oh, the undertow. It's like, okay, there's the more. Anyway, I love the imagery. Thank you.
Right, and so much vitality in all of it. There's vitality in the forward life movement. There's vitality in the whole dynamic. There's vitality in all the undertow that gets to be expressed, and all the energy that's been repressed there, or whatever it happens under there, starts to be released. It's just full of growth.
Okay, I think it might be time for our attunement now. What do you think, Charlotte?
Yeah, seems like it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys. So I'm just going to lead a little attunement. And as always with attunements, if it doesn't fit for you, just turn the volume down and go with your own process of trying to find your own forward edge and your own undertow. And then I think the plan is to go into breakout rooms together, just to open that up a bit. So maybe just taking a moment just to kind of feel the weight of your body on the chair there, just kind of getting comfy. And maybe just noticing your breath, the in and the out, as a way to center you, just bring you into the present moment. And just letting your awareness maybe come to your throat and your chest and your belly. And as you touch in, just noticing what's there about today. And maybe see if you can find that growing edge in you just right now. Maybe a growing edge that's leaning into the future. It's something wanting more. that feeling of life, energy in you pressing forward. Maybe just noticing the quality or the qualities of that movement in you. And as you notice that, does everything in you say, yes, yes, let's go to that? Is there a yes inside? Or is there, are you noticing what we're pointing to as this undertow? Or a backlash or a cautious one? And if there is, just noticing what's in that undertow. Is it a one thing, or are there several different things? So just seeing if you can feel in and noticing there are different aspects there. Just as you notice, seeing if you can give them a name. Maybe it's more of an image that comes, or a metaphor. What are its qualities? Maybe notice of those aspects, are you on their side? Or do you have more of a troubling relationship with them? Just noticing your relationship with them. And we're just coming back when you're ready. No hurry.
What was your experience like in your breakout rooms?
Delightful.
Delightful. What was delightful?
Oh, the exchange, listening. I felt a certain joy in our exchanges. People speaking and being reflected back, and just joy.
That's wonderful. Isn't it wonderful how focusing can help us have joy even in the difficult subjects like the undertow and the backlash, and we can have a joyful conversation about them. Anybody else?
Yeah, I was in Gray's group, and there is like an excitement to be with the edge, right? Even if there is the undertow.
Yes, right.
Yeah, and in a way that has been my big work with focusing since I started focusing a long time ago. I was with this edge and how to be with it in a kind way and listening way. It's complex. And the undertow, which was a new word for me actually, because first I heard it as undertows, you know, the toes under. Yeah, okay, the undertow. I get it now. I could see today that my relationship to the undertow, which is prudence, cautious, wants to be on top of all worries. So I worry so that it's going to be safe, is really in the old landscape. And I really understand where she's coming from this old landscape. And I'm thankful, thank God, because she kept me quite safe, you know, since she was constructed inside pretty much, and I had enough control to keep myself safe. So I could notice this very grateful relationship I have with her, even though, you know, she has held me back a lot. And I'm saying, that's okay now. We don't need to live in this old landscape. So, and that is the result of working in a focusing way with the edge, definitely. So,
Yes.
big.
Yes, yes, yes. And it's so good to hear your whole history with that and focusing. Anybody else?
I have a question, if I may, that came from the beginning. Is that okay, Lynn?
Of course. Why not?
Oh, great. Okay. Thanks. I really love hearing that. So when we're talking about genes, you know, the one interaction, I sort of struggle to understand what is the way that both being differentiated and sort of safely in a sort of distinct self and being one interaction, how are they unopposed? How do those things? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's a wonderful question, and I'm struggling to teach that in our Thursday, philosophy group. But if you can imagine not being a thing, but being a process, then of course we're a process with everybody, but each one of us is a very, very distinct, unique process that mixes with all of the other processes in different ways. We'll have to find the right metaphor for that. But it is a little bit mind-boggling that to not think of yourself as a thing, as a body, not to think of your body as something that's a machine with a skin envelope, to think of your body as going out beyond, your skin. Of course, we know that, but it's hard to think about ourselves that way. So I think that that Charlotte just wanted to remind us that we're always becoming. The way I like to say it is that it's not that anybody is not anything. Can't say that person is a bastard or that person is a good, we're always in becoming, and we're always more complex than any other thing. So that was setting the stage for us to remember that, setting the stage for us to look at what are we becoming? What are we trying to become? What does our organism want us to become? And it won't be a thing that we live happily ever after, but it's an always process of becoming. But we can look to that edge where we're becoming. Did that answer it at all?
I think what I want to say back, what was most helpful, is the idea that it's not that you don't have it's very hard to hold that idea of not a thing, you know, to understand a wholeness. But it's almost like we're a process with everything else, but we also, this whole thing is also its own process. Like we're this interplanetary thing, but we're also our own planet that isn't a thing, but is a process also. But it doesn't mean there isn't a planet. It's that the planet is also in relation and in process with everything else, which is a process. That's the best I can do to get there right now.
Great. I like that.
Thanks, Lynn. Thanks, everyone.
So I'm very eager to hear where you went with what Charlotte presented you. So anybody else?
So I'm Ayana, and so when I could, I have my little hand up. So when I could see the voice that is still persisting, you know, there's the voice that nurtures myself, and the voice of criticism, and from my past, and so I could see that I have a choice. When I could be clear about those, you know, what's coming up, then I see that I have a choice. Which way I want to go. So thank you.
I mean, the whole issue of choice is such a complex issue. You know, what part of us is choosing, and how do we choose? And sometimes when there's the forward edge and the undertow, it isn't just a simple choice. I'm going to go with the forward edge, but there has to be a real going into that, what the undertow is saying, what it's needing, what it's wanting. And I think that is a distinguishing factor of focusing oriented therapy and focusing, that it isn't just choose the best thing, but that it's really holding all of it. And there's choice in that too.
Definitely holding all of it. Yeah. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Of course.
I feel able to look at all of it in a way that I couldn't, where I felt in the middle or submerged, something like that. And these metaphors of ocean, they keep coming to me. The vastness, the power, the elemental, and what the more than work, the more than that part. But it was very helpful. All I can say. And I've had this word acceptance, which to me is a very active word.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, very active. I think for some people it's feels more passive, but that's where that feels real to me now. Accepting the undertow and the wave that lifts you up.
Yeah.
I've always loved the ocean since I was a kid, and been, you know, how a wave can knock you silly, and you turn and you turn and you turn, and you think, I'm going to drown. But you don't. At least I haven't. And there's something about allowing that force too that is in there for me.
Yeah, I love that. That the allowing, sort of giving yourself to
Yeah.
the affecting the undertow. Okay, I think that it's time for Dorothy's poem.
Lynn?
Yeah.
Will you put this recording on YouTube?
Oh, I will. We put all recordings.
Okay. Because I would really love to review it. I was a little bit distracted when Charlotte was giving her explanations, and so I would really love to watch it again.
I was thinking we may continue this theme next time, and Melinda would maybe we continue the theme so that we're not just introducing it and leaving it. We may do that for next time. And I want to remind you that all of the sessions are on YouTube, and you can share them with people. You can, you can review them yourself. And please subscribe to the Help the Helpers, YouTube, and get notifications, and then you'll know when each one gets, when it gets put on, you'll get a little notice. That's my little advertisement. I feel like one of those people on YouTube that are always saying, subscribe and push the bell. But
yeah, I'd like
more comment. We'll hear from Dorothy.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Today's reading, I discovered excitedly another Irish theologian, writer, and conflict transformation practitioner is what Krista Tippett calls this person. And I discovered him on being, if you don't know about on being on Sunday mornings on NPR from 7, I think it's from 7 to 8. It's only going to be on through June, I believe. But his name is Padraig O. Tuma, Tuama, and I did put it in the chat. Let's see. And Krista just talks about visiting him in Ireland, and she says, as a preface, our whole world screams of fracture more now than when I sat with Patrick. Yet this conversation is a gentle, welcoming landing for pondering and befriending the hard realities we are given. The part I'm reading is at the end. He has a new book out, apparently. It's coming out. And she has him reading from the end. Let's see. Neither I nor the poets I love have found the keys to the kingdom of prayer, and we cannot force God to stumble over us where we sit. But I know that it's a good idea to sit anyway. So every morning I sit, I kneel, waiting, making friends with the habit of listening, hoping that I'm being listened to. There, I greet God in my own disorder. I say hello to my chaos, my unmade decisions, my unmade bed, my desire, and my trouble. I say hello to distraction and privilege. I greet the day and I greet my beloved and bewildering Jesus. I recognize and greet my burdens, my luck, my controlled and uncontrollable story. I greet my untold stories, my unfolding story, my unloved body, my own body. I greet the things I think will happen, and I say hello to everything I do not know about the day. I greet my own small world, and I hope that I can meet the bigger world that day. I greet my story, and I hope that I can forget my story during the day, and hope that I can hear some stories and greet some surprising stories during the long day ahead. I greet God, and I greet the God who is more God than the God I greet. Hello to you all, I say, as the sun rises above the chimneys of North Belfast.
Oh, that's beautiful, Dorothy. It reminds me of Jean saying hello, hello to everything. Yeah, thank you.